Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Sports Scoop, the podcast. Welcome back to episode number 5. Today, we have a very, very special guest, Pick a Side podcast host, Joel Moran. First of all, thank you so much for joining us, and how are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you guys for having me on. I'm feeling a bit sick. I
saw.
Just went and tested for COVID. I am COVID positive, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Yes. So hopefully I feel better. I don't feel very sick right now, but I'm getting better.
Okay. Yeah. COVID hits people different ways. So I know my brother got, and he was like, I was literally fine. He was at college, but that's terrible to hear. I'm sorry about that. That's not a great way to start. But obviously, quickly before we get into it, make sure you guys subscribe. If you're listening, we're new to this. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you guys follow us as well. But Joel, tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you guys are a nationally ranked sports podcast, number 27, if I'm wrong. I'm sure you guys have climbed up a little bit.
We've lowered, but yeah, around there.
I mean,
yeah,
each week, but I mean, nationally ranked, no matter where you are. It's crazy. Obviously, you guys have probably over 100,000 fans across all platforms. So, I mean, just obviously absolutely so special for you to come on the show. Quickly, tell us a little bit about yourself before you get into it. So let us know.
Well, a little bit about myself. I'm from Hackensack, New Jersey. Always got to represent the city.
Okay.
I'm currently 22 years old. I am going to college currently for sports broadcasting, and I love talking about sports. So when you guys wanted to have me on, I was ecstatic. Anytime I get a chance to talk about sports, I'm giddying up for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. We are juniors in high school. You're by New York, right? Are you in New York? Or you're
in New Jersey.
You're in New Jersey, right? Okay, so
yeah.
we live in New York, but definitely we're the exact same. Want to go for broadcasting. So obviously, whenever we get to talk about sports, it's a great thing. But make sure you guys go follow Pick a Side on TikTok, Instagram. I mean, you guys probably know them, to be honest, at this point. But make sure you guys go follow them on all of their platforms. Without further ado, we're gonna get into a hot topic, Joel. So obviously, we know you're a Jets fan. If I'm correct, we have our other host Surge was supposed to get on, huge Jets fan, big Zach Wilson supporter. Dylan, on the other hand, is a Tua supporter. He's a Dolphins fan. I'm a Giants fan. So we got two Giants fan, a Dolphins fan, a Jets fan. So definitely our group chat gets a little bit heated sometimes, to say the least. But the first thing we're gonna get into. So I saw on your guys' recent podcast, on our last one, we talked about, we're always talking about these quarterbacks. I would say Tua is probably 70% of what we talk about in our group chat. Arguments happen a ton. But what we're gonna talk about in this one is Wilson really versus Tua. And not to put them up too much against each other. We don't want to get into too big of an argument, but I think, again, with Zach Wilson's very impressive performance against Tampa Bay, I think some of you guys talked about is the ability for this, for Zach Wilson. What you wanted this entire season was you're not at BYU anymore. Slow the game down, throw it to your check downs, and really, become a little bit more comfortable. Don't go for the deep pass every time, which what we saw against Tampa Bay, and a big reason why the Jets almost won that game. When you see Wilson versus Tua, try to be as unbiased as you can. What, comparison wise, do you think Wilson has a brighter future? What would you see in terms of kind of those two guys?
I don't think it's close. I think Zach Wilson clears him and everything. Maybe the stats aren't there and the production isn't there because he's just a rookie. But Zach is going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And he's going to be one of those franchise-changing guys that every other week you see on ESPN and get posted because he's making some crazy highlight. You saw it a couple times this year versus Tennessee, those two big-time throws versus Jacksonville, that 52-yard run. It's just not close. I think Tua's Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Zach Wilson really has top 5 quarterback upside, and the direction the Jets are going in right now. I mean, I joked about it on Twitter, but we should really trade for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
We trade for Calvin Ridley. We have Corey Davis, Elijah Moore. We build out that offensive line because it's not terrible right now. But if we get a couple more pieces, I mean, Zach can have a breakout second season to where this might not even, a year looking back at this, we're like, why was this even a question?
Yeah. Dylan, because Dylan is I'm telling you, Dylan's about to give you some peace of mind. Dylan's a big Tua supporter, and he's able to back it up. I'll give him that. Something I've been a big advocate on is I did not like Tua at all. Coming out of the draft, we started that draft. That's when we started our podcast mid-quarantine. So I wasn't very smart. So I don't know what I said about Tua. I don't think I particularly hated him or liked him. But as last season went on, I was like, I really do not like this guy. And Dylan's a big fan. I'm definitely, a bit of a fan of giving the quarterback 3 years, giving them 2 years, whatever it is, unless there's something egregious, which is obviously why you should move on from them. So when the Watson rumors came out about Tua, I was like, I would move on. I would get Watson. I think Watson changes the Dolphins and makes them a contender. That being said, this year I've definitely become a little bit more of a supporter and started to lighten my views on him because of that 7-game win streak. And no matter how you look at it, no matter, because I think the Eagles and Dolphins are in the very kind of same boat where they won a ton of games, but was it really against good competition or good teams, which I think is fair, but taking it in context, but then also it's 7 games in the NFL. So, winning is winning. But Tua, to me, when I look at him versus Zach Wilson, I definitely agree. Right now, I think it's close. I would agree. I would rather have Wilson. And that's simply for the fact that Tua is very different to me. I think Tua can be the future of the Dolphins, the quarterback for the Dolphins. I don't think he'll be elite. I don't think this guy is like Zach Wilson has that potential to really be a top 5, top 10 quarterback. And do I think Tua can't maybe get in that top 10 conversation or be around there? No, I think he can. But I think Wilson, the intangibles he has and kind of that just sheer ability from what I said, if he can be more calm and throw the checkdowns and just be, not going for the big plays, which big plays we know he can do. And we know he has the arm to do that. I would take Wilson. And now Dylan, what do you think? We know what you think, but
I don't
try and take our opinions and really
I completely understand your opinions, and I've definitely softened up on Zach Wilson coming into the last couple of weeks, really after that Philadelphia showing. But in my opinion, what I see from Zach Wilson is similar to what I saw from rookie Baker Mayfield. So he's got that, he hits the deep balls. He's got the same type of swagger that I saw out of Baker Mayfield, but he's really prone to making dumb mistakes. And if he's gaining confidence, which I think he is right now, I can see him keeping up his crazy plays, which what you were saying, Joel, and I completely understand that. We could see him all over ESPN. He's going to be hyped up, but that's only if he's on a good team. And I don't think the Jets are going to be that within the next 2 to 3 years, comparatively to Miami, who I think they're going to be cleaning their offensive line out. Now with a better pass protection unit, Tua will be able to hit those deeper throws, which he hasn't been able to because he hasn't had the time to. That being said, I think Zach Wilson is much more talented as a player. So if both of them can overcome situational organizational dysfunction, I think Zach Wilson has a brighter future. But right now, I think Tua is in a better position to succeed.
Wow, I was actually not expecting you to say that.
No, that was very fair. Wilson's really impressed me.
That was a very fair argument.
I think the Jets are in a similar position to what the Buffalo Bills were when they drafted Josh Allen.
That's something we touched on. Yeah.
I get annoyed by that because every time someone says and they see a young quarterback, they see them thriving in a big game and they say, this is the next Josh Allen in 3 years. We saw it with Daniel Jones earlier. We're starting to see it with Jalen Hurts now. And now we're starting to see it with Zach Wilson, even like Davis Mills, we're seeing it with. Not everyone's going to be Josh Allen. We have to realize Josh Allen is an absolutely incredible quarterback. He needed time, but time doesn't automatically mean you're going to be a star quarterback. So Zach Wilson hasn't really shown any Josh Allen-like traits other than maybe in the last 2 weeks. So maybe if we could see some continuance in there, but I wouldn't go as far as to compare him to Josh Allen quite yet.
I'll ask you this. Out of all those quarterbacks that you named, Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts, Davis Mills, Zach Wilson, who is the one that has the most physical ability that's comparable to Josh Allen?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think when you look at both, I would argue for
Daniel Jones there, actually, though.
Daniel Jones?
Daniel Jones' deep ball coming out of college was elite. Daniel Jones' deep ball in his first season, elite. He has the mobility that Josh Allen has. Zach Wilson, I think, is in the same category as Daniel Jones in those facilities, and Zach Wilson will be better than Daniel Jones because he doesn't have the chronic turnover issues that Daniel Jones did. But I think as far as the raw physical traits, I think Daniel Jones has him set there.
Yeah, I was more speaking to the fact that the Bills in 2018, they drafted Josh Allen. Their offense was horrible offensive line, no receivers to speak of, no running backs. Then in 2019, you go and get John Brown. You go get Cole Beasley. You go build up that offensive line. The defense was already there because Sean McDermott is an excellent defensive coach. I think Robert Saleh is going to build up this defense to at least a level to where we're formidable, without a doubt. The offense, Mike LaFleur has really picked up his offensive play calling these past couple of weeks. We have pieces with Corey Davis, Elijah Moore. We have an okay offensive line with Mekhi Becton. He's going to come back next year. Elijah Vera Tucker, George Fant, Connor McGovern has been good. If we get one elite receiver, similar to what the Buffalo Bills did in 2019 when they got Stephon Diggs, that took Josh Allen over the top. All we need is one elite receiver, which it could be Calvin Ridley or Jamison Williams or Burks from the draft, and maybe some tight end help because we don't have no tight ends. We can see Zach take a really big jump.
Yeah, and that's where I see it, and definitely touching to the physical traits, I think Zach Wilson probably compares the most to Josh Allen. I think size wise, Josh Allen is a very Herbert and Josh Allen are two quarterbacks where they're special. I mean the height and not very skinny and deep ball they have and accuracy is special, and I think that's something we talked about with Tua and definitely Zach Wilson. I mean I think you can argue Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones to me, I would not put him near Josh Allen. I think arm wise it might be good, but this guy's pocket presence and just kind of ability to understand and notice pressure to me is just terrible. I'm a Giants fan. I don't think Daniel Jones is our guy, but that's for a different conversation. I think Zach Wilson, this is definitely something I've talked about when he was coming out of the draft and looking back at it, because a lot of people saw him coming out of the draft and no matter, no way you go around it, he wasn't playing fantastic competition. And that was the main reason why people were like, okay, this guy isn't Justin Fields should be taken over him. And I didn't really think that. I thought Zach Wilson was a good quarterback, deserved to be taken at number 2. But what I've seen a difference from him from BYU is this guy was able to throw deep passes, but I think sometimes his ball was a little bit underthrown, and the receiver kind of made up for it. And what I've seen from his deep passes, at least when they're not picked off, he's definitely touched up that accuracy and that ability to kind of, drop it in. Tua, to me, I would think is a little bit more accurate, but that being said, we don't see him throw many 20-plus yard passes. He's getting the ball at 2 seconds, 1 second, and that is true. The offensive line is egregious. And I think Zach Wilson's is definitely better. And I agree, not having Mekhi Becton, hopefully when you get him back, I think they're probably hoping to maybe get an offensive lineman in a very deep O-line class, maybe in the second round or first round. And I completely agree. Maybe you trade for Calvin Ridley, which I think would be a fantastic idea, because I don't know what his value would be. I think a first, but who knows? Maybe you can package 2 seconds and maybe a player. And then Jameson Williams, who I absolutely love. I think this guy is, the ability to take the top off defenses. And like you said with Stephon Diggs, because we on one of our other podcasts, we were comparing Allen and Wilson, actually, they're rookies. And Wilson has been better than Josh Allen rookie year. And I know Josh Allen was very bad and it took him kind of 2 years. So I think maybe you don't get the elite receiver next year, or maybe you do, and then Wilson takes that step the third year. But Wilson, to me, the path he's going on, I definitely could see being similar to Josh Allen. Obviously, it won't be verbatim, but I think it could be, somewhat, close to what it is. But I definitely think Zach Wilson has potential to be a guy, and I think each week he's started to owe miles a little bit more. Dylan, I think the thing that scared me the most was, I'm not sure, I don't know if you know him on TikTok, Joel, but it's this kid. He's a Jets fan, and he was going over the game against, I think it was the Patriots, and there was this one play where 2 offensive line weren't blocking anybody. The tight ends were looking at each other. And then it was the one Corey Davis, I think, bobbled and got picked. So I think Zach Wilson, you got to give him a little bit of a break. He hasn't been in the best situation. But Dylan, do you have anything else to say on Tua? I think you both laid it out very well. I think that was very, very.
I do have a little bit more to say on Tua, and I like that Joel really brought up the offensive play calling that Matt LaFleur has brought, or Mike LaFleur.
Yeah,
I always mix them up.
No, Mike LaFleur. Yeah,
Mike LaFleur has brought to the New York Jets. But what we're not being able to see from the Miami Dolphins is the ability for Tua to drop back in the pocket and pass the ball deep. And I think that's mostly attributed to the terrible play calling we're seeing from George Godsey. This season, he's had Tua Tagovailoa throw the ball over 20 yards, I believe, 7 times over the course of the season, which may be attributed to him not trusting Tua, or may be that he doesn't want him to turn the ball over. He doesn't want to be responsible for a deep ball being played. And it's the same thing we saw with Chan Gailey last season. But when Tua's been making these deep ball throws, he's not getting intercepted. He's throwing completions. So if he were to utilize the deep ball, and he had it in college as well, he was taking the top off defenses in college. That's how we found him out in that national championship game where he took place of Jalen Hurts. And when he's been completing these deep balls in the NFL, people are like, oh, wow, Tua can do it. But he hasn't been throwing these incompletions on deep balls. So what we're really needing to see is, can he do it more consistently? Can the offensive line get better? Can they hire a new offensive coordinator? So for me, I don't like to make a lot of excuses for most quarterbacks. And for Tua, I really happen to be making a lot of them. It might just be because I'm a Dolphins fan. But it just happens to be for me that it's not on him, the struggles that he's faced and the criticism that he's been getting.
Yeah, that is a fair point. I think I would agree. And I think definitely Tua, giving him another year makes the most sense. But with that out of the way, we'll move on to our second topic. So we touched on, I know, Joe, you guys did on your recent podcast, obviously the AB situation. And I know that you guys touched on this where we thought at first, because the podcast we did on Monday, we were like, okay, AB, there's something wrong. We were really attributing this, and we're not medical experts. We probably shouldn't have been saying this, but that Vontaze Burfict hit to me, I was like emphasizing a lot because I feel like that hit may have changed something. Who knows? So we obviously saw the very lengthy statement he posted. I didn't read all of it, but it seems like he may have not been in the wrong here. He may have not actually been wrong. He leaked. I saw it when I saw it early. I think it was like 1:00 today. He leaked the messages with him and Bruce Arians, where he admitted that he wasn't fully healthy, and Bruce he wasn't overtly like, you're going to play. But Joe, I'll go to you first. Not was Antonio Brown right, but was, kind of the light shed on the wrong part of the situation? And do you think AB was right? And even that, do you think maybe he's going to another team if he is to be cut? And obviously the news is he has not been cut yet.
He has been released as of today.
Oh,
actually.
He was. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
he was.
That's actually funny because I thought Brady would have a little bit of say, because I mean, obviously we know what happened. If I'm the Bucs, I wouldn't want to lose AB. But now I know you guys said, I'm not sure who was the reporter who announced he had a job if he wanted one. Packers.
Josina Anderson.
Josina Anderson. That I could not remember her name. And she, obviously we know she's generally right about everything. So yeah. I would assume if I'm the Rams, Packers, maybe you go and sign him. But that was a very long explanation. What do you kind of think about the new information that's come out about it?
My mind hasn't really been made up on this situation because I think there's too much information that points in different directions. Antonio Brown leaked those messages, and I saw them. He also leaked some messages with Alex Guerrero, which is Tom Brady's trainer. And in those messages, I mean, what was the point of leaking them? I didn't feel like it made Guerrero look bad. AB said that he owed him money. But in the messages itself, Alex Guerrero said, okay, where do you want me to send you the money? So he was going to send him the money back. So I don't know how that made Antonio Brown. I don't know how that made Guerrero look bad. And then with the Bruce Arians thing, I thought those text messages, AB never said he was hurt. Like, I don't think he ever said he was hurt. So
maybe you're right.
And because of that, I just feel like this is one of those situations where it's very unfortunate that Antonio Brown has put himself in this predicament. He was cut on the sidelines. I think that report just came out as recent that he had been released, and that's why he left abruptly. But as a person, as a professional, you have to handle yourself better in that situation, regardless of whether you are dealing with traumatic brain injuries or not. I mean, I think Antonio Brown, yes, he's gotten a lot of hits, just like a lot of players in the NFL. And you're right. Ever since that Vontaze Burfict hit, everything has seemed to go downhill for AB. But I'm not quite sure what it is. I mean, the leg, chances are that he does have CTE, but I don't want to speculate on that. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's a cloudy situation. Antonio Brown has to handle himself in a better manner. The Buccaneers were right in cutting him. Whether or not I think he's going to go to a new team, it's really a toss-up, because if this is Madden franchise or fantasy league, you pick him up tomorrow. You don't wait on it. But in the NFL, week 18, he has to learn an entire new playbook, a system, an offense. That's a lot for a team to deal with.
Yeah.
And there's obviously faults on both sides of this. And for the Alex Guerrero situation, I think Brown was trying to say that Guerrero hadn't paid him back immediately after the incident because of the injury. I think that's what he was trying to say, but it didn't really come across in translation. But what I think actually happened inadvertently is that Antonio Brown has every NFL owner shaking right now, because I think he might have just exposed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for forcing their players to play under injury, for not having good enough team doctors. We saw this with Washington a couple of years back with Trent Williams. And I think no one is going to touch this guy, because I think he is going to go into a team and absolutely destroy the inside integrity in the front office and on the field as well. So as far as getting back on the field, I can't see it anytime soon. But I think if a team brings Antonio Brown in, they have to be aware that this guy might actually turn their organization on its head, because I think there's going to be investigations on Tampa Bay now.
Yeah, there might be. The Antonio Brown situation to me, it definitely, I feel like when we saw kind of that new narrative about it, it definitely, I was like, oh, wait, maybe he isn't wrong. Obviously, looking into it, I definitely would say there's discrepancies within both sides. But in terms of just teams signing him, it sucks because Antonio Brown is such a good receiver. He's someone where right now, if he didn't have those problems, he would arguably help the Packers win the Super Bowl, help the Rams win the Super Bowl. I mean, this guy's a fantastic receiver. That being said, I wouldn't say the Packers or Rams direly need him. So I wouldn't, obviously, like you said, Dylan, I wouldn't think that they would go risk signing him. And unfortunately, Antonio Brown is a cancer in locker rooms, and he's proven it time and time again that this guy is not a very good locker room player. Tom Brady being very nice defending him. I'm sure Tom Brady could have some poor things to say about Antonio Brown, but football being football, he's a fantastic receiver. He's obviously why he's one of the best to ever play. And that's what sucks about it because, you really would love the talent and just not have to deal with the off field issues. Cause this guy's electric to watch. And even at this age, this guy's still one of the best route runners. And really watching that kind of that Tampa Bay second half last year where he played, he looked great. And it was like, oh, finally, we weren't happy because he was playing with Tom Brady and he was playing with already a stacked Buccaneers team, but nevertheless, it was great to see him play. And it sucks. I feel like if this didn't happen, maybe even this offseason, he goes and finally becomes a wide receiver one again somewhere. But I mean, him and Le'Veon Bell just can't seem to get together. Just they sign Le'Veon, he gets released. But yeah, I would agree in terms of going to another team. I don't think he will, but talent wise, he just seems like such a electric player, and I would love to see him play there, but I don't think he will either. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll never know. I guess only time will tell if he gets signed. But We're gonna move on to our next topic now, going on to playoffs. So Joel, I don't know about you, probably have your own opinions on this. So we were gonna first talk about the downfall of all playoff teams, 14. Some teams are pretenders, so I don't think it's worth it. We picked how many teams? I think 7 teams who we think are contenders to win the Super Bowl or make it to championship games. It's the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bucks, which I think is questionable, the Rams, the Bengals, the Titans. I don't agree with this, but the Cowboys, we had to have some.
I put the Cowboys.
Before we get into it, Joel, are there any of those teams, honestly, you would either add or take away?
I'm taking away the Bucks.
Yeah, I'm
taking away the Rams too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm taking away the Rams, and I'm actually leaving in the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm not a huge hater on that, but I'm leaving I'm very happy you didn't say the Bengals. So I'm a big supporter of the Bengals. I think this team is, a team that everybody's been talking about recently, but we're going to go to a potential downfall of each team. We'll go through each, give a little bit of thoughts on them. So we'll go to the Packers first, which I think are probably the favorites. Them and the Chiefs, I think are the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Joe, when you look at the Packers, what do you think I know it's a little bit on the spot, but what do you think one potential downfall could be for this Packers team to not win the Super Bowl?
Not enough receivers. I think that's been their downfall, plus run defense for the past couple of seasons. The run defense, they've shored up though, and their cornerbacks, they're really solid. Rasul Douglas, and that's another thing I wanted to mention about the Antonio Brown thing with the Packers, that I don't think it happens. Brian Gutekunst has shown in the past that he doesn't bring in the biggest names. The Packers could have had J.J. Watt. They didn't get him. Instead, they signed Devondre Campbell, and he's been a gem for them. So, the Packers, Brian Gutekunst, he doesn't make these big-time moves, and their team is solid right now, but that second receiver is what I think they're really lacking, and a tight end too, because Robert Tonyan going out with a torn ACL, he was so huge for them last year as a red zone threat. Devontae Adams, we know he's an elite receiver, but one of these guys is going to have to step up, whether it's Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, or MVS. One of these guys has to step up. So if there's something that could be their downfall, it's going to be that.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same exact thing. They don't have enough weapons on the offensive side of the ball to compete with some of the better teams in the NFC, including some of the teams that we just took out of our conversation, the Rams to be one in specific. I don't think that they're going to be able to outbattle them offensively if they were to face off with each other. Not to mention Jalen Ramsey will be shadowing Devontae Adams, which could go either way. But if you knock Devontae Adams out of the game, you knock the Packers out of the game.
Yeah, I think the only way, and this won't really change, the only way I think what's been very underrated in the Packers, I think need to use more, and they have been utilizing, is that kind of dual backfield with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And I think if you can maybe not throw the ball as much with Aaron Rodgers, which I know is so hard to say because you have arguably the best quarterback this year and the best wide receiver in the league. But if you can maybe, when that's not working, if you can run the ball a lot, this is a very, very good, you have a 3-down back and an all-down back. So to me, I think that would make a ton of sense if you can run the ball with both of them. That being said, I would agree. I think the downfall, I don't know if this is a downfall, but just classically, the Packers have not been able to make it to the Super Bowl as of recent. I don't know if that's really just, I don't know. That's not really like a point. Like that's not a downfall. And I think this year's different. I think it could be, but I think this year's a little bit different. I would say the defense has been the problem. Rasul Douglas has been fantastic this year. And obviously they brought Jair Alexander off IR, who's arguably, I think Dylan, you think is the best cornerback in the league. I don't think he is, but
we'll need to see how he recovers.
Yeah. Top 3, top 2, no matter. Jair Alexander is one of the most lockdown corners. So he shadows out there, top receiver. And like you said, Devondre Campbell has been arguably, besides Parsons, who can you even call him a linebacker, the best linebacker this year? He's been fantastic. And I don't think he made the Pro Bowl, right? He was snubbed the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
No, Micah made it.
Not Micah, Devondre Campbell.
Oh, Devondre.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And Mike, I think the only reason Devondre has definitely been a little bit more quiet. I wouldn't say you're hearing his name too much, but just quietly, he's been fantastic. But yeah, I would say down for the Packers. And I wouldn't be as like scared about the side of the Packers if Allen Lazard or MVS, this was their first season on the team, but we've seen them make the playoffs and neither of these guys step up. Allen Lazard, I'm not sure what game it was. I think it was the Christmas game where he played fantastic. He was really, really good. I think it was the Christmas game. But it might have been against the Lions. No, it wasn't. Who did the Packers?
It was Cleveland.
It was Cleveland, right? Sorry. And Allen Lazard looked great. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something there. But I think come playoff time, I would agree they're going to struggle there. We'll move on, unless you guys have anything else to say. We'll move on to opposite division, the Chiefs, who are currently chasing the AFC title. I mean, this team I think is probably the hardest to pin. What would be their downfall, Joel? Is there? I don't even know right now. What do you think their downfall would be? Coming playoff time. Yeah, I really don't think anything. I really don't think anything.
Probably their biggest downfall is their cornerback play because they have a tendency to hold and pass interfere a lot and get those penalties. So that's probably their only downfall, but the offense is clicking. Mahomes has been Mahomes for the past couple of weeks. They're running the ball effectively. Their defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL, but they just tend to give up these big plays sometimes, specifically when Daniel Sorensen is in the game, because I think he always tends to blow a coverage or make a mistake. So that would be their downfall. The secondary, defensive pass interferences, holding calls, those type of ticky-tack stuff.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that front, except in the playoffs, Daniel Sorensen always ups his game to the 3rd degree to where it is in the regular season. I would say that their only real pitfall could be costly turnovers in their own half. And drop passes at the start of the season that led to Mahomes' interceptions were bad. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has fumbled the ball a lot in his career. And now that we're really seeing him and Darrell Williams as a split back package, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Darrell Williams take charge of that backfield come postseason time because of the fumbles that Clyde Edwards-Helaire drops. That being said, that sounds like a good thing. Darrell Williams does not have the same type of production that Clyde Edwards-Helaire has, which could force KC to pass the ball more in their own half, thereby having more of a interception possibility. So I think turnovers in their own half is their only real pitfall. But that being said, I don't think that's that big of a pitfall because they've been able to click offensively. But if I had to pick one, that's the one I'd have to say.
Yeah, I think definitely. And the Joe, like you said, the cornerback play, it's been prevalent. But that Bengals game, I mean, Charvarius Ward, who's kind of been up and down for them, I just don't understand. I did a film analysis on that Jamar Chase game, and he was pressing Jamar Chase every single down. And Jamar Chase did the same thing. He's a very good release, and he got outside and got onto the backside of Charvarius Ward and was able to catch it. And Jamar Chase obviously is not like some receivers. He's able to catch the ball over him. But every time Charvarius Ward gets the ball caught over him, he's like, what? Like, what? Like, it was the same thing. They're press man, and he didn't have a safety behind him. And then also, like you said, Daniel Sorensen, one of the big plays, I believe it was a Jamar Chase, not the first touchdown that he got the 76. He had 2 big touchdowns. I think it was the second one. And Daniel Sorensen, I think it was zone, and he was supposed to be there, and he wasn't. And Daniel Sorensen, to me, it's been so confusing because I feel like come playoff time, he's been crucial. Like the Browns game, playoff game last year, Dylan, we were watching this together. He forced that fumble out of the back of the end zone. I think to kind of, it might have been to win that, not to win that game, but stop him from scoring. So he's very up and down. So I wouldn't be surprised if somehow he the Chiefs have, all-star players just come out during the playoffs. So I would agree. I think the Chiefs out of all these teams have the least weaknesses.
Yeah.
Move on to another. We're going to the NFC team, the Bucks. I know we want to take them out. I can't with Tom Brady. We can touch on it quicker than any of the other teams, but Joe, is it just as simple as they don't have enough receivers?
I think they just had too many injuries.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin, AB now being released, Leonard Fournette. The secondary has been injured all year long, and even then, it's a very weird secondary. Jamel Dean's the best player on the secondary. Carlton Davis is up and down. Sean Murphy-Bunting is up and down. Richard Sherman is not who he once was. That defensive front isn't as dominant as it was pass rushing-wise last season. And as much as I want to trust Tom Brady, and we know that he's the greatest of all time, whenever his teams win a Super Bowl, they tend to have a down year the very next year. When he first won it in 2001 and 2002, they missed the playoffs. And because of that, I just think that this year's Buccaneers team, given all the injuries and the chemistry and the continuity, I just don't feel like it's there right now. And that's why I don't have much faith in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think you put it great. I think I agree. I don't even have much else to say. I think injuries is just the big problem.
Injuries is their pitfall. I think we can all agree on that, but I think they're much more in the conversation than you guys would really think, because their defense, even though they've had injuries, has still managed to be relatively elite comparatively to the rest of the NFC teams this season. So especially since Todd Bowles in the playoffs last season was able to game plan perfectly for every opponent he had. And now what we're going to see is Tom Brady throwing to Patriots level receivers when he was there. And we're going to be seeing the defense carrying the offense like the Patriots at times. So I think it's really a classic Tom Brady team that he's leading right now. Really headlined probably offensively by Mike Evans now, which is not someone he had over in New England, other than when he had Randy Moss. But I'm getting off topic at this point. I'm saying their pitfall, and that's what we're really discussing, is the injuries they've had. I don't think they'll be able to make it far enough just because they don't have enough depth. They don't have enough talent on the offensive side of the ball for them to function as the way they did, especially against some really solid teams. But I think they're a lot better than you guys were making them out to be, especially since their defense is as good as it is.
Yeah, I think they to me are either a first round exit, because they're the 4 seed right now, right? Or are they I think they're the 4th, right?
I think they're the 4 seed right now.
Yeah, so they play 5th seed. Who's 5th? I don't know why I can't remember this. 5th seed is
right now it's Arizona.
Yeah,
Arizona.
I think that's a game.
No, Tampa Bay is the 3rd seed.
Oh, okay.
Because LA plays Arizona as results stand right now.
Yeah.
So Tampa Bay would end up playing Philly.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I'm betting against Tampa Bay, every day. So I think they could either be I was going to say they could be a first round exit. As it stands, I don't think they will be. But yeah, I would agree. I think, just looking at it in hindsight, injuries to me just seem like that's what will stop them. It's just, at the end of the day, it's who can really, get over that hump when it comes in, who can really have that longevity, and they just don't seem to have it, unfortunately. But next team we have is the Rams, who we said we should take out. Joel, why would you take them out of contention, and what do you think, because within that is their downfall. What do you think for the Rams?
It's going to be Matthew Stafford. That's why. Matthew Stafford is going to hold them back. Yes, he's an upgrade over Jared Goff, but he's not the significant upgrade people would like to believe he is over Jared Goff. He's a marginal upgrade. Jared Goff with the Rams was a top 20 quarterback. Matthew Stafford, borderline top 10. I'd put him at 9 range. And even Jared Goff in his best season, he was a top 10 quarterback. Matthew Stafford in big time games just doesn't perform in prime time games just this season. Versus Tennessee, he didn't play well. Versus the 49ers, he didn't play well. I just don't trust Stafford in big time moments. He hasn't won a playoff game in his career yet. And because of that, I don't trust him in the playoffs.
Oh, that makes total sense. And I actually didn't even consider that. What I put was the inability to run the football. They haven't been able to really utilize Darrell Henderson, especially since now he's injured. Sonny Michel's actually made a really big impact. But now that Darrell Henderson will be back, and I believe Cam Akers will be back at the end of the season, that's going to lead to having a 3 running back committee. And when teams have 3 running back committees in the playoffs, you pick one. That's what San Francisco did with Raheem Mostert. and it worked out for them. But I can't see one of those guys going in there and being able to win a grimy football game against one of these good defenses. So I think the inability to run the football is my downfall. But I definitely think Stafford's inability to win games in primetime is another key factor.
Yeah, the Rams, for me, I think defensively, this is a good team. I don't think there's any downfall in that defense. It's a championship level defense. And I think, really looking, if you look at it, the obviously there's NFL fans and there's us. We look at it deeper, obviously, because you talk about it on shows. And I think definitely when you look at Goff versus Stafford, it's marginal. It's not very big. I will say Stafford brings experience and just that little bit extra in every category: arm strength, accuracy, mobility, which I think that's what makes this Rams offense exciting. That being said, I mean, really, Cooper Kupp's been fantastic. OBJ's been fantastic. I think, and as opposing to, because you don't think they'll be contenders, I would agree. I think they can make a championship game. I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, but I think really it's I mean, this season has been one of the most inconsistent seasons win-wise. I mean, there's been a team that's been good for 2-3 games and then they lose to the Lions, like you're the Cardinals. So I really don't know. But I would say, probably Stafford, especially with the turnover problems he's been having recently, if that continues, this defense can't be on the field for 20-30 minutes of the game and really defending for that much. So I would say probably Stafford. Move on to the next team, the Bengals. Is their downfall just as simple as experience, or does it go deeper than that, Joel?
No, they have major holes on their team that gets covered up by their explosive offense, but their offensive line is still one of the worst in the NFL. Their secondary, it has been better, but they rank 27th in pass defense currently. Their run game, their run stopping ability is really good. They have a good front four, but they don't have a great secondary. They have major holes on this roster, but because Jamar, Burrow, Boyd, and Higgins with Mixon, they could put up 30 plus, it gets masked. But this team has to really score a lot of points in order to win a game in the playoffs.
I understand that, and the big holes in their defense are definitely big factors. And the offensive line, while definitely improved from last year, is still not top tier. I wouldn't go to say that they're one of the worst in the league, but they're definitely still, I would say, come playoff time, a problem for them. But I would say that the big problem is if they go down, I can't see them coming back. And I know they just came back against Kansas City last weekend, but I just want to bring in something that I saw earlier today, is that Joe Burrow, who's thrown 12 interceptions this season, all 12 of them were from behind. So we're going to go and see him in the playoffs, and he's not going to be able to recover from that. So I think it's a little bit of mentality, and that might just come from them being a really green team. They're not postseason, maybe not even postseason ready. Obviously, they're good enough to be in the postseason, but they're not really there mentally as a group. And this is just conjecture, honestly, because they haven't been there. I can't really say that. I'm just reading into it. But I would say that their downfall, and it's pretty obvious, is just the experience that they're going to face. And that might even just be from Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon. It might not even be the holes that you guys are really Joel is pointing out. It's just all around.
Yeah, I think, Joel, because I don't know what your opinion was draft time. Did you think they should go Sewell, or were you like, go get Chase?
I was on the Chase train.
Okay, so Dylan, I don't think you were you?
I really didn't have that big of an opinion because I was under the impression that they were going to get Pitts, but Atlanta went and took him.
Yeah, so I was a big Sewell fan. I'm definitely, after seeing that terrible injury, I was like, I don't see how they can go any other way. Obviously, it turned out much different. And Penei Sewell still has been fantastic for the Lions, but in terms of their offensive line, I think, yes, it hasn't been great, but comparing to the fact that last year it was atrocious and they didn't get Sewell, it's been better. I mean, Burrow, the production he has, if you were to look at that, you would think, okay, this offensive line is probably mid-tier, which obviously come playoff time, all offensive lines get exposed. But I think, the ones that aren't top tier will get exposed more. So I think we could see that with the Bengals. In terms of offensive line, I don't know if it's their biggest downfall. I think defensively it will be, because they're going to be going shot for shot with good offenses, and then it's going to come down to defensively if they can match up. And I think the Rams is a bad matchup for them. I think the Colts is a bad matchup for them. So for me, I think, whether you look at it as experience or defense. I think it comes either way. And I think really it comes down to, which I don't think you can speculate about now, is Burrow going to be the same quarterback in the playoffs? Because we don't know that. I think Burrow to me seems like he will be. You don't know. But I think it'll definitely be telling. But Burrow would definitely put up a great case. I think offensively they can go shot for shot with any of the top defenses. But I think that game against the Chiefs was definitely cushioned them a little bit because it was a bad defense and they were able to expose that defense with Jamar Chase. But let's move on to the Titans. What would you say the down for them? So let's keep in mind Derrick Henry's coming back. Something Joel, I don't know if you've heard this, me and Dylan were saying is they made look, this team without Derrick Henry is probably lock the 1 seed. Does Derrick Henry coming back and dare I say it, not make them worse, but are they gonna have to change this offense so much to be giving the ball constantly to Henry now, where it will not make them worse? And I don't want to say that because it's Derrick Henry, but just what do you think the downfall would be? And with Henry coming back, how do you think their offense changes?
I think with Henry, the offense hasn't changed much because last year in the playoffs, when they had Derrick Henry, it was evident that Arthur Smith didn't trust Ryan Tannehill. This year, it's evident that they still don't trust Ryan Tannehill that much because even when Henry has been out, Deontay Foreman has really stood up and he's really made a big difference. Like Deontay Foreman is a guy who I think he can be a workhorse. He's that good. I call him baby Derrick Henry. Sometimes I get mixed up watching him. I'm like, wow, this guy has Derrick Henry's body. He looks very similar and he has the same hairstyle too.
Yeah.
I would say play calling is going to be the downfall. Todd Downing. I think they're one of the more complete teams in the entire AFC. Ryan Tannehill, he does tend to make really dumb mistakes sometimes, but Todd Downing is just a major drop off from Arthur Smith. I mean, he does things in the opposite way of what you're supposed to do them. On 1st and 10, 2nd and long, he runs the ball, which in my opinion, I like to pass on early downs. And then when he's short of the sticks, like 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, he passes the ball. So he's a very weird play caller. I think this year he hasn't been very good, and Titans fans have been noticing his downfalls as the season has been progressing, and he's probably what's going to hold them back.
I had put that Derrick Henry and reinstating him into the offense and making them Henry-centric could be the downfall of the Titans, but I actually have something else now, and it's really not being able to stop the run as effectively as one would think going into the end of the season. Usually the 1 seed in the AFC, usually the 1 seed in most conferences, have a solid run defense. That's what it takes to win 12 to 14 NFL's regular season games. But Tennessee run defense just has not been able to put up with the production that Jonathan Taylor's been able to put on the board, the production that Nick Chubb put up on the board against them. And even last week against Miami, Duke Johnson was able to run for 7 yards a carry against them. So it doesn't really look like they're going to be capable of stopping the run going into some really tough playoff games. And say they do get that 1 seed, they get that bye week, they go into the next game and they play Indianapolis. Jonathan Taylor's going to run them down. And that could be a pitfall for a lot of teams, that Jonathan Taylor is going to run them down. But I think especially for Tennessee, it's going to be that.
Yeah. Tennessee is tough for me. I think you can't really justify Derrick Henry coming back hurting them because this guy is a absolute monster. And I definitely agree with you. And Dylan, as much as you're agreeing with Joel saying Deontay Foreman has been a workhorse, you were not when I said that. So let's set that straight. Because I was saying
Here's the difference. Deontay Foreman has been a workhorse. He's not Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but you don't need him to be Derrick Henry. Like when Dalvin Cook's out, Alexander Madison has been great. And it's you don't want to go, oh, wait, but he's not, Dalvin Cook, but he's been able to do, him, Tony Pollard, like all those guys when the main back's out have been as productive as some of the mid-tier backs and are guys that can get starting roles. I don't know. To me, the Titans is definitely tough. And I think play calling could be one. I definitely have noticed their inability to make smart calls, especially when it's third down, when you're throwing it. I don't know. I'm definitely different. I don't know. I've definitely never really thought about this. I probably like running earlier and then throwing, but I think, I agree. It definitely, that's just in Madden. So I don't really, that's what I like to do in Madden. So I don't know if that like makes sense at all. I would agree with the Titans. I think I agree with both of you guys. I think offensively. And I would say more Ryan Tannehill. This guy has definitely had a resurgence in his career since Miami, but he's not a kind of guy who you can drop back too much. And I think Derrick Henry coming back will help that. But in the same time, we've had the Titans, have Derrick Henry dominate in the playoffs, and they haven't made the Super Bowl, like with the Ravens. And I don't think they can play, upset and go win, beat a higher seed, or not higher seed, they're number one seed. Never mind. But I think they're a number one seed, but, the Chiefs are better than them. There are some teams that are better than them. So I wouldn't say they would be the favorites in some of the games. But we'll go on to the last team. That's the Cowboys. Downfall for them. What do you think it will be, Joe?
It's going to be their lack of creating turnovers. All season long, Trayvon Diggs, he's leading the league in interceptions. He has 10 plus on the year. They've been able to force turnovers, and that's given the offense more possessions. If they're not able to force turnovers in the playoffs, I think that's going to really hurt them because their defense is good. Statistically, it's been great, but I don't have too much belief in them really holding a team to 10 points or less in a playoff game. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think their offense is going to have to put at least 20 plus points to win a game. And that's what I think their downfall is going to be. Micah Parsons can very well make up for it because he creates a ton of pressure. And because he's constantly creating pressure, it puts quarterbacks in a tough predicament to kind of force the ball down and feel a little bit more. But that'll be their one downfall, is their lack of creating turnovers in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a very good point. What I have for them actually is clock management. We've seen it from Mike McCarthy for ever since I've been watching the NFL in the Packers games. He has not been able to effectively manage the clock, especially with a solid offense. He's left Aaron Rodgers 10 seconds to drive 75 yards down the field instead of using a timeout defensively. He's done the same thing for Dallas earlier on this year, and I think that contributed to their loss to Arizona last week. We're going to see it a lot in the playoffs. Will he be able to overcome it? Will the offense be able to overcome his flaws? I don't think so. I think that's going to be the downfall for this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but with both you guys, but more, I think it'll be not Dak Prescott, but the offense, because I see like when you see them match up against good teams, and also at home, they haven't been great either, obviously losing to the Broncos, then they lost to the Cardinals. And I think, Joel, that, obviously last week, makes your point even better because the Cardinals come in, they're not playing very well. They definitely weren't on a hot streak, and then they go and win at in Dallas. And, again, we look at the Chiefs beat them, obviously, the Raiders beat them, whether that may not be an elite offense, but I think definitely not only defensively, but being able to keep up with teams. I'm just not sure if they're, and it's really tough to say, but I feel like when you look at their performances against good teams, it's so contradictory of them to play, to be able to keep up with them, and not keep up with them, but be able to close out games. And I think that might be it, is that ability to, if Dak is in a 2-minute drill, can this guy actually go and win a game? Which I think we've seen and we haven't seen. But I think that would be the downfall for the Cowboys. I think definitely I think they have, their roster is built, but it's really that experience and that ability to pan out in games. But we'll move on to number 5. We've already touched on this. Obviously, the news came out today about Calvin Ridley, how he may want to have a fresh start, new start. Obviously, we know what happened this season. He, I'm not sure what week it was in, but stepped away from the game for mental health problems. Joe, I guess we'll talk about that situation, and then what do you think are some potential suitors for him, and what do you think about kind of that whole thing? Because we know Calvin Ridley's elite, and maybe potential trade packages. Kind of what do you think on the entire thing?
It's a very weird situation because it happened so abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when he decided not to go to London to face the Jets with the team, and then he took a break from football. At the time, it felt like the Atlanta Falcons organization was doing everything they possibly could to accommodate him, to make him feel needed, to make him go get help. I mean, they were there for him throughout the entire way. So I don't know where the relationship went sour. And in terms of talking about potential suitors, I mentioned it earlier, the New York Jets, and I'm not going to mention another team because I'm going to speak it into existence here. Calvin Ridley, I want to see on the New York Jets because, for one, the AFC East is going to be a really tough division for years to come. You have the Bills, who are not going anywhere, the Patriots, who are now resurging because they drafted Mac Jones, and now that offense is able to move down the field. but the defenses in our division are very tough, and especially the secondaries. And talking about Miami, Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, we need a guy like Calvin Ridley to go up against those corners to really make it tough. And if we can have Calvin Ridley with Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, with Mike Carter, and I wouldn't even be opposed to drafting Jameson Williams. Let's bring in 4 guys who can really ball out. Now we're talking about an offense that can be one of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley, I just want to touch up on it. For him leaving Atlanta at the time he did, I don't know the exact situation, how, why, or where, or when it happened, anything really. It was just so out of the blue. And I didn't really even look into it at all afterwards. I kind of just said, oh, okay. And it was kind of just like, it just happened. And Atlanta hasn't really skipped a beat, as they haven't really seemed to miss him. Russell Gage has kind of filled into his role, as weird as that sounds. But as for potential suitors, the Jets is a good option. I think Miami's a good option. He had the connection with Tua early in their Alabama careers, and Miami do have the most cap space in the league coming in to this season. But I think the most likely outcome is him ending up in Philadelphia. With the amount of draft capital they have, the amount of cap space they have, his connection with Jalen Hurts from Alabama, I think it's all really set out there. And even mentioning that Philadelphia don't really have 2 solid receivers, obviously having Devontae Smith coming in this season, but they don't really have anyone else that can really match up with any NFL corner, let alone some of the best in the league in Trayvon Diggs, James Bradbury twice a season. I don't think there's any other better team to take him on. And I think Philadelphia are completely willing to do so. So I think that's the best option.
Yeah, with the whole situation, definitely came out abruptly, and I don't think there's been some big commotion, but I think best suitors, I think the Jets could be, and just looking at teams that kind of need the receiver, I would love to say the Giants, but I don't think we'll go get him, obviously, with kind of the money we've spent. And then, yeah, I think that, I think I said Miami Jets. I think the Eagles definitely be a big one. Maybe the Bears, although they don't have a first rounder. I would have to do some more research, but I think kind of the top tier teams, maybe the Jaguars. It depends on where Calvin Ridley, what situation he wants to go into. But yeah, I mean, if I'm Calvin Ridley and just saying this, I think the Jets is definitely very intriguing. If they can maybe with Jameson Williams. But I think, trade value wise, I don't know. I really don't know. As we said this earlier, I think Calvin Ridley is worth a first round pick. Does he get one? I'm not sure. And then it comes out to, is he going to hold out? Like, is he coming back? Will he not play for the Falcons anymore? Or is it the kind of thing where he just says he wants a new beginning, but will go play for the Falcons? And then the Falcons are like, well, we're only going to trade him if you give us a ton of value. So it's kind of that situation. Hopefully it doesn't become something bigger where he sits out for the year. Cause I hate seeing good players sit out for the year and just not being able to play. So I hope he gets traded, and that'll just add some more spark to this off season. But in terms of value, I think maybe 2 seconds a player, who knows, a first. We'll see. But again, maybe he gets traded for a 3rd and a 5th, and I'm just completely wrong. We'll see. But we'll move on to the next topic, and that is the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield, and if we think he should be moved on this season, and what some potential suitors would be. But Joel, what are your opinions on Baker Mayfield and how up and down he's really been?
I think this is not this offseason to move on from Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
For multiple reasons. For one, I think he deserves a little bit of a break. I know that he's been bad this year, but last year he was very efficient, and he's dealt with so many injuries this season. I mean, knee injury, torn labrum. He's going to get surgery on it soon. I mean, he's been dealing with a lot, and he still has been gutting it out and going out there and playing. And yes, the Browns have not been winning, but there are a lot of things wrong with the Browns. For one, outside of Jarvis Landry, they really don't have a great receiver. They have serviceable ones like Donovan Peoples-Jones and Schwartz, but they don't have a great one. You look at their defense, it's picked up over the course of the season, but it hasn't been the defense we thought it was going to be after they made all those offseason moves, like getting John Johnson, Jadeveon Clowney, drafting Greg Newsome, signing Troy Hill. It just hasn't worked out to what we thought it was going to work out. They're not an elite defense. They're just not. And Baker, yes, he's been bad, but the injuries coupled in with all the COVID stuff they've been going through, the offensive line has been hurt as well. I think he deserves another season, because when you look at what the Browns have been like before Baker Mayfield, they went winless. They were 0-16. They had the first pick in the draft. Baker goes there. He instantly makes them a 7-8-1 team. Next year with Freddie Kitchens, disappointing. Then the very next year, they win a playoff game. First time in 20 years they do that with Baker Mayfield. I mean, he's really changed the culture in Cleveland, and he's the Browns are the perfect example of why even having a serviceable quarterback is important in the NFL. And Baker Mayfield, he may not be elite. He may not be top 10 or top 15, but he's definitely a serviceable quarterback. And in an offseason where there aren't many quarterback available in the draft via free agency, you got to stick with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I'm very torn on the situation because I feel like, giving quarterbacks time, and I think definitely giving Baker Mayfield a break is fair enough. And I would not be mad if they were to bring him back next year. I'm a very big advocate. I know Derek Carr's not a free agent. I think he'd be a fantastic option for Cleveland. And I know he is a free agent in 2023. But then it comes down to where would Baker go? And I don't really see him being an effective starter on any other team or being particularly interesting to another organization. But I mean, this season he's been poor, and no matter how you look at it, I think giving him a break or not giving him a break, he hasn't been good. And whether that be move on from him or not, I'm definitely I don't think they should. I don't think they shouldn't. I'm definitely neutral, but I don't think he is the guy for Cleveland. That being said, they've been very injured. They made the playoffs and won a game last year. So it's very, you can't recency. He should be moved on. But if you're really looking at how he's transformed this Brown team, like you said, Joel, he deserves to. So I think definitely your arguments, kind of turn my, formulated my opinion a little bit differently. But I definitely would like to see what the thoughts would be, maybe going to the draft or not. Maybe they go. I've seen a lot of people. I mean, I guess it's the TDN Draft Network who have some pretty terrible mock drafts sometimes. But they had him take Desmond Ridder in the first round. So I don't know. I don't think that would be worth it, to be honest. But that's my whole thing, because new quarterbacks this year, the draft is probably not the best place to go and get or go create a quarterback competition. Like if it was Trevor Lawrence, maybe Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, kind of guys who really have that X factor where it's like Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett and Ridder, who we don't know, and Malik Willis, who are definitely guys who you don't know as much of, or maybe don't have the upside of the quarterbacks of last year. So if on the Browns, I think, sticking with Baker might be like the only realistic option. But Dylan, what do you think?
I think sticking with Baker has to be what they do going into this season, barring Russell Wilson wanting to move to Cleveland, which I really doubt would happen. But you can't go looking in the draft because none of these guys are going to be any better than Baker Mayfield this season. And this team is built to contend in the next 2 to 3 years. And they're not going to be able to get that out of a Kenny Pickett or a Matt Corral or a Malik Willis. And you could say that they can get it. They can't get it out of Baker Mayfield either, but they've steadily improved with Baker Mayfield, or not even steadily. They've just exponentially improved with Baker Mayfield over the course of the years. You have to take into account he's been playing with a torn labrum since week 2. So you can't really judge him as harshly as you would have if he's fully healthy. And I know it doesn't affect his throwing arm, but he's in immense pain every time he steps on the football field. So it's really hard to judge him comparatively to how he was last year when he didn't have a torn labrum. So you have to give him the next year, and not even only because he had a torn labrum, we have to take it easy on him, because there's no other suitable player that could take this team farther than Baker Mayfield will. Again, unless Russell Wilson wants to leave Seattle and move into Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, which I don't see happening, but you never know. It's the NFL. We are going to move on to our last topic before we get in to the closing one that's not as NFL related. And we'll touch on it quickly. Obviously, the Chargers-Raiders game, I would think, is probably the biggest one and the one with the most crazy outcome coming into this weekend. And Joe, you definitely heard, but if the Jaguars beat the Colts, then they can top. Is there another situation? Is that the only game that needs to pan out?
I think that is the situation.
Yeah. So if the Jaguars beat the Colts, they can tie. Yeah, before you guys make opinions, the Colts have not beaten the Jags at home, I think, since 2014, 2015.
Even though they went 1-15 last year, they're worse this year.
No. But I'm saying the Colts are, the Colts are definitely favorites. So I'm saying the Colts have not beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars at home, at Jacksonville, since I don't know what the stat was. I think it was
since 2015.
Yeah, 2015.
It's not going to hold up.
Yeah, you never know. But I guess people are just holding on to what could possibly be one of the craziest games. I don't even know how it would work. And I don't know. If I was a Chargers or a Raiders fan, do I really want to just make it that easy, or do I really want to fight for it and make it legit? I guess we'll preview that game and kind of that situation, Joel. Like, what do you think? Should happen? Yeah,
I think the Chargers and Raiders would be happy if that happened because they both make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think they'll still play the game, but probably like their backups. Could I see a situation where Jacksonville beats the Colts? I can definitely see it because Trevor Lawrence has been horrible this year. I know the situation has been horrible, but he's been the worst rookie quarterback of all rookie quarterbacks this season, despite being the number 1 overall pick. And yes, the coaching staff has been abysmal, but it's been a lot of his fault as well. He needs a big time game before the season closes out. So could this be the big time game he has? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to happen. Let's talk about the Chargers and Raiders. As much as I want to pick the Raiders because I'm a huge Derek Carr advocate and fan, he's one of my favorite people and quarterbacks in the NFL. I just feel like the Chargers are destined to win this game. And for a team organization that has been through so much up and down moments, they failed to win important games. I just think this is the game Justin Herbert needs to prove to the entire fan base that times are changing, that this time is different. It won't be like the Phillip Rivers era where they're exciting, the stats are great, but there's very minimal winning.
Yeah, that's definitely so, because we do our weekly predictions each week, and that was the when we talked about this game. It just, we all kind of picked the Raiders because I think Derek Carr wants it more, and not only that, people are forgetting the chip that this Raiders team has on their shoulders. Obviously, coming out this season, now Nate Hobbs gets charged with the DUI. I don't think, obviously not as serious as the Henry Ruggs one, but all the John Gruden stuff. I mean, if they were to make the playoffs, it would be a fantastic story. And even if Derek Carr comes off to me as the guy where I will risk missing the playoffs than tying a game purposefully and not fighting for it. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe that's stupid because you make the playoffs, but I feel like, yeah, that would be funny. That would be a great storyline, but do you really want to be like, oh yeah, we purposely tie? I feel like it sounds stupid now that I'm saying it, because yeah, why would you not want to make the playoffs? But
you don't do that. They're division rivals.
Yeah, like that's what I feel like. I feel like it would make, and this is probably all going to be bogus. I think the Colts will win. So I think they'll have to end up playing it out. But it's definitely a fantastic way to end the season. Nevertheless. But Joe, who do you think will win the game? Do you think it'll be Raiders or Chargers?
I think it's the Chargers.
Okay, and Dylan, you had the Raiders, or maybe
I think it's going to be the Raiders.
Yeah,
I don't think that the Chargers are going to be capable of stopping Josh Jacobs. They have the worst graded run defense in the league per PFF. And they also just haven't been able to win big games as a franchise. And times may be changing. Justin Herbert may be a little bit more progressive, a little bit better than Phillip Rivers ever was. But I don't think that his ability to elevate the offense is good enough to win them this important of a game against a team who, as you said, has a ginormous chip on their shoulders, every single one of them. This is a defense that's one of the, I think, top 10 in the league right now, that's composed of, I think, all 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. Mm-hmm. These are guys that are going to fight and win. And I think that's going to be the reason that they will come out victorious in this one.
All right. Well, Joel, quickly before we hop off here in the last, hopefully 5 minutes. So obviously, get off the football topic. You have created an incredibly successful podcast with Pick Aside. What, you guys started 2 years ago?
Yes. November 2019, I believe.
Yeah. So something we've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to do a video on this. If you were to kind of give advice on how to create a successful sports podcast in general, kind of what would your advice be for someone out there looking for it?
I would just say to be consistent. I know that's a very cliche answer, but I think it really holds true. You just have to post all the time and always be out there and make a name for yourself by what you post out there, because when we first started the podcast, we were posting and we barely got views, but we kept on doing it. And then it started to grow. At first it was very minimal growth. Then it started to grow rapidly. Right now, it feels like we're growing very rapidly, but at first it started out really slow. So I would say just be consistent, be passionate about what you're talking about, and be prepared, and also have a presence and kind of dictate trends. Like, for example, TikTok has been huge for us.
Yeah.
Not really on the YouTube aspect of things, because on YouTube, we already had a presence on YouTube. But for our podcast downloads, for like the audio versions only, once we grew on TikTok, that started to skyrocket, and that brought on different opportunities for us. So just taking advantage of platforms and the organic reach that some of these new platforms have. And right now, that platform is TikTok.
Yeah. And in terms of production, so you don't have to, if this is personal, do you do the production for TikTok? Like, do you guys have someone who makes them for you, or do you make it, or are you like, how does that work? Just for people wondering on how to kind of get it out there.
Oh, I make the TikTok clips.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, so I do as well. And definitely something I find not hard, but I feel like it's time consuming. Definitely, kind of going through a podcast, finding that clip, and then, obviously making it into a clip. But, in terms of consistency, because you're in college, like how would you, kind of help people balance it? Because, it's definitely tough. Like, how would you balance it, and how have you done it?
Well, it's almost impossible, to be honest with you. Last semester, I didn't do too well because it was very hard for me to balance it. The semester before last year, because we were in COVID and everything was online, it was much easier for me to balance that because we were online. I didn't have to commute to school, but it's really about, I think, just committing your time to doing it. Not everybody really has to go to school. And if you don't want to go to college, you don't really have to, but you just have to have a plan. And some advice that somebody told me one time, it was actually my dad, is that as long as you're doing, just make sure you're always doing something.
Yeah.
You don't have to be doing what everybody else is doing, but just make sure you're doing something. You're carving out your own path. And I think what you guys are doing is exceptional. I mean, you guys are in high school. You're probably like each 17. Yeah. You have a podcast that you're dedicating your time to doing. And I think that's awesome. Like, I didn't start the podcast until I was 20. You guys have a 3-year head start. You guys are 17. So, and right now in high school, you don't have much things that are consuming your time.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of time to do this and really excel in it. And you just have to find that balance in time. And it definitely does help when you're not restricted by multiple things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in terms of just last question, because I'm definitely very curious, you guys always have a great studio. Is that a studio, or is that someone's, like, do you guys have your own kind of like setup there? Like, how does that work? Because I mean, it's fantastic. You guys have your own kind of setup.
Yeah, this is my house. It's my basement. I'm actually here right now. This is the studio.
Yeah, it's awesome because we do the exact same. I'm in my room right now, but I've like ours. We just do it either in our basement. It's definitely very easy. So guys, I'm telling you, and from experience also, it's definitely very easy to start a podcast. I think I would say it's posting that first video, because it's definitely scary. I was a freshman in high school when we started this, and I was like, man, like people are gonna make fun of me, like YouTube, like no, like
people still make fun of me.
I don't care anymore. I personally don't care. People think it's awesome. I definitely think it's better that it's like sports. If it was like vlogging, then it would be much different. I think that's helped.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think a big problem was like, oh, what are people gonna think, and blah blah. But it's definitely. I mean, this is the best thing. I absolutely love doing this. I'm sure you do as well. I think I just lagged out there. I think I just lagged out. Excuse me, but yeah, no, yeah. So, no, I think this is honestly one of the most fun things, and we've done this, and we found a career path that we want to do now. Like, this is no doubt either production of a podcast or a show or something is what I want to do. So, I think posting that first video and getting it done is definitely a big thing. But we won't hold you any longer. First of all, Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. First time having a big name come on the show. So it was obviously a very, very exciting. Hopefully we can get another Pickside host. We love all of you guys over there, but thank you so much. Obviously guys, you guys already know them, but make sure you guys go follow them, go show them some love as well. And Joel, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. Without further ado, guys, make sure you guys,
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Make sure you guys subscribe, follow us on social media, Cian McDermott, Dylan Channel, Joel Moran. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next podcast. Thank you so much for listening and watching.